All right, today we are talking about active listening. The next several slides are going to be questions that are follow-up questions for an activity that we do where one action leads to another action. Sometimes it's verbal or audible, so something that you can hear. Sometimes it's something that you have to notice. So in doing the activity, I try to have you notice that if somebody is talking to you and you're trying to pay attention to what what comes before your task, it makes it a lot more challenging. If you're talking to somebody else, you might miss your task. Other people around you might miss what they are supposed to be doing. How if you are the speaker, if you're somebody who's saying something, you need to make sure that you're speaking clearly, that you're paying attention. All of those things which lead into our do's and avoids of active listening. So if you are being an active listener, there are things that you want to do and there are things that you want to not do or things that you want to avoid. Okay, so if you are being an active listener, you are tracking the speaker. When you track the speaker, it just means that you're following them with their eyes. So no matter where they walk in the classroom or where they walk, you are going to be watching them and kind of like turning so that you are facing that direction wherever they are. You want to make sure that you are sitting up. It doesn't mean that you have to have prim and proper posture, but you're not like melting into your desk and just kind of becoming a puddle of a person. So it's okay to like lean on an elbow. It's okay to have your head in your hands. That's okay as long as you're kind of more sitting up than laying down. You also want to make sure that you're paying attention, that you're trying to listen and that you are aware of when somebody is talking to you or if they're giving directions, that you are trying to follow those directions. You want to make sure that you're being an active participant. So sometimes this looks like nodding your head, giving some sort of indication like, hey, I am still with you. So if you are in a conversation and somebody is talking a lot of the times or a lot of the time, you can nod your head. If it's a phone conversation, you say things like, yeah, okay, to let them know that, hey, I'm still here, I'm still listening to you, I'm still with you. You also want to make sure that you are listening attentively. So in Charlie Brown, the teacher sounds like wah, 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 wah. So even though you hear the sound, you're not really coming up with any sort of like meaning for the sounds that are coming out of their mouth. But if you're not listening attentively, if you're just hearing the sounds that are coming out of their mouth, you're not really learning anything. So you have to make sure that you're listening and you're hearing the words that are coming out of their mouth and you're turning them into words and trying to figure out what the meaning is. So it's more than just hearing, but it's listening. So actually gathering information from what you're hearing. Making eye contact. So this doesn't have to be constant eye contact, but it's good to check in with your eyes every once in a while to say like, hey, I'm still with you. I'm still here. I'm still, I'm still listening. So don't be looking anywhere and everywhere but where the person is. So don't avoid eye contact. Make sure that you are keeping eye contact or at least checking in every once in a while. You also want to make sure that you sit still. This doesn't mean that you can't move a single muscle. It just means that your movement should not be drawing the attention of other people. So in the sounds that you're making or in the amount of movement that you're doing. So we talk about in class that it's okay to like bounce your knee or jiggle your foot or tap your hands or your fingers on your desk as long as it's not making sound and it's not distracting other people. But some people do need just a little bit of movement to kind of make sure that they can focus and be present in the conversation. But it can't be so much movement that you're pulling other people out of the, being able to focus and listen and be present in the conversation. You also want to make sure that you're avoiding a couple things. So you want to avoid thinking only about what you want to say. A lot of times we do this in an argument. So if we disagree with somebody and we're having an argument with them, they might be talking, and instead of us listening to what they're saying, we are just thinking about, okay, this is what I'm going to say because this is what they are saying. So it needs to be more than just, us thinking about what we want to say, we also need to be listening to what the other person is saying too. You also want to avoid talking to your neighbors, so talking to the people around you, because if you're talking to the people around you, you aren't paying attention to or you at the very least aren't giving your full attention to the person who is supposed to be getting your full attention, which is the speaker. We already talked about avoid moving around in your chair. It's okay to have a little bit of movement. Don't throw yourself a mini dance party, and make sure that your movement is not distracting others. Avoid interrupting the speaker. So especially if it's, you have a bunch of different people and a bunch of different people are interrupting, it can be really distracting to the speaker and the people who are trying to listen if they are constantly derailed and lose their train of thought because they're constantly being interrupted. Also avoid drawing pictures or working on something else. So for certain subjects or certain things, you may have stuff that you need to draw out or diagram. That's different than if you are in a social studies class and your teacher is talking about George Washington and you're drawing a portrait of George Washington. So it can't be something that is all-consuming. You really should be giving your attention to the person who should be getting your attention, like the speaker. So those are the do's and avoids of active listening. Make sure that you are being an active listener in the classroom and outside of the classroom.